Soy así, así, la misma que cuando me mientes. Impresióname, tú me vuelves loca, ya estoy pegada a...
Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jada, and I am going to be talking a little bit about some questions that I've been receiving about what it's like to live in Puerto Rico and different questions like that I've been receiving. So I'm going to start off with questions about the schools here in Puerto Rico, but I will... Yes, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you do, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to see more of my videos like this. And if you have any comments or other questions about anything that I didn't answer in today's video or didn't talk about in today's video, then please feel free to leave it down below. So to get started, the first question I have some notes here, but the first question I have is, how does college work in Puerto Rico or slash Mayagüez? And what is the pricing? So I do, if you're new to my videos or haven't seen my videos before, I do go to the University of Puerto Rico, Recinto de Mayagüez to be exact. This is on the west coast of the island. So I will start off by saying that most of these questions depend on the area that you're living, whether you live in the north, the west, the east, south, wherever it is that you live. Most of these questions are going to depend on where it is that you live, but I'm doing my best to answer them for you guys because I have visited a couple different places. And obviously I know a lot about the west because this is where I live. So I am here for school. So for my university personally, and I believe it's about the same for all of the universities within the UPR system, the University of Puerto Rico system. My school is $6,000 a year, about 6,000 and something dollars, like $100 and something dollars a year. Schools in Puerto Rico do take FAFSA, as Puerto Rico is a part of the United States. So FAFSA does work here. You are allowed to use Pell Grants and apply for FAFSA even if you're applying to school here. So if you're in your last year, make sure that you do that, because I know that time is around here, or in any year actually, but you know. So the universities here, obviously I've never been on campus because the whole pandemic. The campus is planning to open back up next semester, so next school year. For anyone that hasn't heard or just doesn't know, they are planning on reopening the campuses for the next school year, but obviously that could change at any moment. Who really knows? But that is the plan that they have told us so far. So applying to school here is super regular, you know, regular schmegular, the same way that you would apply to schools in the States. If you're an international student from outside of the United States, then you would have to go through a different process, obviously, so just make sure to check into that. But assuming that you are coming from the States, the process is very similar to any process to applying to a university in the States. I know that what was a little bit different, I did have to take the subject test for both English and Spanish. So if you haven't yet completed high school, maybe you're junior, sophomore, I would recommend that in your high school years somewhere that if you don't speak Spanish, I would recommend that you take a Spanish classes, or if you can, an AP Spanish class, because my AP Spanish class really helped me to take the Spanish test and to get a good score on it. I believe I also had to, or it was optional, or I had to take the regular SAT. I can't say for sure, but it does say on the website, so I will link that down below as well. I know that we're very, as a school, the Recinto de Mayagüez is a very open to athletes. So if you are an athlete and you're thinking about applying or going to school in Puerto Rico, I would recommend the Recinto de Mayagüez for sure, because they're very in love with athletes. And not in a bad way, in a very good way. There's supposed to every year be like this tournament between the different campuses of the UPR, the Puerto Rico system. And obviously we haven't had one this year because of the pandemic, but I've heard that Mayagüez basically wins every single year. It's just due to the fact that there's a lot of really good athletes at Mayagüez and that the training is really good. So if you're interested in that and you are an athlete and you're thinking about moving to Puerto Rico and going to school here, hey. So all of the classes that I have had minus one have all been in Spanish. We do have reasonable accommodation. Now, I don't know if this changes whether your classes are in Spanish or English. I don't think there's that much of an option because the school is not a bilingual school. But I did have a lab in English, but that was because the professor spoke English and was from California. But that was it. All my other classes are in Spanish. I do have a pretty good understanding of Spanish, and it has definitely increased since I came here about 7 months ago. Has definitely increased a lot. So all of my classes have been in Spanish, and it's been fine. It's been, good. But if you're uncomfortable with that, there's a couple different options that you have. Reasonable accommodation, which, like I said, I don't know that they'll give you classes in English because of it, but they do allow you extra time on your quizzes. They basically, you basically let your professor know that you have reasonable accommodation. They'll check it out, and they'll give you extra time on like your quizzes, tests, different things like that, as far as I know. I'm not sure what else it entails, but I do know that that is a part of it. There are other schools in Puerto Rico, so this is not just a video about, obviously, Recinto de Mayagüez or universities in Puerto Rico, but there are other schools in Puerto Rico, other universities that are bilingual schools. So I think it's called the Inter-American University, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so I did look it up. It's called the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico. They have a few different ones. In Spanish, se llama la Universidad Interamericana because that's the most, how I hear it the most. So if that's what you hear, if you hear it said that way, then that's the same thing. It does cost a little more. It says on here that it costs about $8,000 after aid. I'm not sure exactly. That's just the Google, but I'm sure it does cost a little more, just because it is a bilingual school from what I've heard. They have a couple different locations across the island. So if you're interested in that, then go ahead and check that out if you don't feel comfortable with the Spanish. Also, you have the option of Rio Piedras, which I don't know too much about Rio Piedras, but I know that in San Juan there is a lot of English spoken. So your chances of having English classes might be a little better. There's a lot of people in Mayagüez who do speak English, a lot of students, but it's not extremely common. So do with that with what you will, Another thing is that we do not have on-campus housing. So this was something that was not an issue for me. I did not want to actually live on campus. So it wasn't an issue for me. It actually helped me out. But for some people, it might be an issue. So if it is something that you're not comfortable with and you do want on-campus housing, there might be on-campus housing at Rio Piedras, but you would have to look into it and check it out. I do believe that I saw something about on-campus housing. At the Recinto de Mayagüez, we do not have on-campus housing. There is on-campus housing for athletes. So if you're an athlete, I'm not sure if they're using them right now. I would assume that they are, but I'm not 100% sure. But if you're an athlete, then there is on-campus housing for you. And I don't know if it's should you choose to live in the on-campus housing or if it's required. I'm not sure about that because I'm not an athlete here. But most of the communities around Mayagüez, considering that Mayagüez is the Recinto de Mayagüez is extremely popular, there is a lot of student communities. There's a lot of communities that are just full of students. Right now, during the pandemic, everything is extremely empty, but my friends have told me that it is usually extremely packed. There's nowhere to park. There's no apartments that are open. Everyone is living here. Right now most people are living where they're from, with their parents or wherever. But during a regular school year where people are actually going to school, there's tons of communities that are super close to the university. So most people live in those communities and they're just packed out. So if you do plan on going to school here next year, be aware of that because school is supposed to start back up, so it might be significantly harder to find housing. So now speaking of housing, where I live in a hospedaje, and I don't know the direct translation in English. I don't know that there is one, but it's basically an off-campus apartment, if you will. So there's some hospedajes that are shared, there's some that are just singular person, there's some that you can share if you choose to. There's some that are bigger, some that are smaller. It just all depends on where you're looking and what you're looking for. So they can range in price from anywhere from about probably 150 or 100 to probably like $600 to $800. I'm not 100% sure, but I think one of the more expensive ones I've probably seen was like 800. And those are like the super modern ones with pools and things like that, and they're not necessarily hospedajes, they're more like apartments. But a lot of students tend to live in them, which is why I mentioned them. But anyway, I would say obviously the cheaper ones are the ones where you share with roommates, and then the more expensive ones are probably, you know, the modern, nicer ones, whether you're living by yourself or with someone else or anything like that. I do live in a hospedaje. My hospedaje costs $400 a month with water and lights included. So it's super common to find in student communities that water and lights are included. You can also find some where water, lights, and Wi-Fi are included, which is extremely nice because then you don't have to pay for it. So I do, like I said, I do pay $400 a month, which is not super bad, but it's not as cheap as it could be. I could obviously live in a cheaper place, but I live super close to the school and my apartment is super nice. So I don't complain. You can definitely find a really good range for whatever budget, whatever fits your budget. If you want to live with people, if you don't want to live with other people, you know, however you feel comfortable, you can definitely find something that fits your budget. I'm from California, so everything I'm used to is extremely expensive. So to find an apartment for $400 a month is extremely amazing for me, and I didn't realize that it could get lower than that. So definitely go apartment hunting or hospedaje hunting if you're planning on living here. So I think that's everything I had in terms of schools.
Impresioname, llena mi mente de locuras. Me temo que no